Describe image is one of the most important question types of PTE academic test. It is the third question type of your speaking module, and in this question type you will see an image. It can be a pie chart, a bar graph, a line graph, any random image or anything, any map or process. You'll have 25 seconds to prepare yourself, and after that you will have 40 seconds to record your answer. In this image, there are three marking criteria. First is your content, which has 6 points and will be double checked by human. And then you will have fluency, which will measure the fact that how smooth your delivery is. And then you will have pronunciation, that will measure the fact that how accurate your pronunciation is, not the accent. And for both fluency and pronunciation, you'll have 5 points each. That means for one describe image, you will have 16 points. And in the exam, you will get 5 to 6 describe images for your answer. Hi everyone, this is Rashid and I'm from ACE Language. And in today's video, we will focus on one of the most important question types of PTE Academic Speaking module, which is describe image. Describe image went through some radical changes over the years. When the PTE test was first introduced, for describe image, students used to get about 6 to 7 questions. And then from 2021, students started getting 3 to 4 questions. From November last year, human check was introduced, and from 7th of August, students are now getting 5 to 6 questions. Over the years, its contribution has also changed. It used to contribute around 20%, but now it is contributing more than 30% of your total speaking score, making it one of the highest score contributor towards your speaking. So doing well in describe image is of paramount importance for you to get a good score in speaking, especially if you are aiming for 90 out of 90. And why do you need 90 out of 90? Because from 7th of August, to secure the superior English point, which is 20 peer points for your Australian migration, you need 88 out of 90 for your speaking module. So it's better to aim for 90. So in today's video, we will look at several types of describe images. We will see what type of information we should add in our answer, and we will also see me trying to answer them within 40 seconds. So without further ado, let's move forward and learn about what we need to do exactly in PTE describe image to secure the maximum point. First of all, if you are planning to use any template, please discard it. We do not want you to use any template because human will double check, and if your content happens to be with template, you are gonna get a 0. And if you get 0 in content, you will get a direct 0 out of 16. So that's number 1. Rule number 2, always use that 25 seconds of preparation time to organize your information. There can be a lot of information, but what I suggest my students to isolate 5 information to do well in that describe image. First information that you are going to isolate is the title. Make sure you always start with an introduction, and that will contain your title. The second information you are going to look at is the category. There will always be categories or labels in your describe image. You need to mention some of them. If you have too many categories, don't waste your time simply mentioning the categories, which will not give you a score. You should mention 2 to 3 categories and use the word so on, right? And then what you should do is pick up the maximum number or the highest and use that, because that's a significant information. And then you should pick up the lowest or minimum number, because if the highest is significant, lowest is also significant. And number 5, the information that you need is going to be your conclusion, and for that pick up any 2 random data and use the word respectively, or talk about their change of pattern or compare them. I personally prefer picking up two data and compare them just by using the word respectively. Remember, you will be tempted to use a lot of information, but what you have to know that you don't need all the information. You have only 40 seconds. So isolate these 5 information and you will do well. So now that you know, you don't need to use a template to get a good score. In fact, it should be the opposite. You have isolated your information. What you should do is to practice to answer within 35 seconds. You should not take more than 35 seconds. Because if you want to take more than 35 seconds, that will mean that you have to start a new sentence after 35 seconds and you will not be able to finish it on time, which is not recommended at all. So don't try to answer for all 40 seconds. Try to limit your answer between 35 to 37 or 38 seconds and make sure that you always give a conclusion and press the next button once you are done recording your answer. Do not wait for the system to go to the next one automatically. Now, one important factor when you are doing describe image is that you should have your own structure or sentence bank ready. The reason why am I saying that, even after asking you not to do any template? Because see, template and structure are totally two different things. Template means that you are using sentences and words that have no relationship with the image that you are getting. On the other hand, structures allows you to connect between the sentences and create a cohesion. For example, you can always start by saying this type of image shows information related to this, and you can give the title there. Then you can say this image has this categories. Then you can simply say this is the maximum, which is this, that you are giving some color or number or something. Then you can clearly say this is the minimum, which is this. And then you can say, you can end by saying in conclusion or to conclude, it should be noted that this data can be compared in respectively. So there are many ways you can create your own sentence bank. I recommend that you use your own sentence bank. What we will do now, we will look at few images. We will look at a line graph, a bar graph, a pie chart, and a random image, and you will see how I collect data, how I isolate them, and how I answer them within 40 seconds. Okay, if I first look at this particular image that you guys can see on the screen, first thing that comes to my mind is the title. Now the title says Australians fully engaged in work and or study in 2019. Then the next thing that comes to my mind, or that actually comes to my attention, is that what are the data levels here, right? I can see that there is one data level at the bottom, or you can say x-axis. It says teenagers 20 to 29, 30 to 39, 40 to 49, over 50. It has a couple of other data levels, like on the right hand side you can see males and females, and on the left hand side it has percentages between 0 to 100. Obviously I'm not going to describe all of them when I'm going to answer my question, because I won't be able to repeat all of them. Now then I know that I'm gonna talk about at least two numbers. One of them will be maximum, another one will be minimum. If I look at this image very carefully, the maximum number between all the data levels is between 30 to 39 and males. And here is the next thing that you have to, or you should actually use certain numbers. So 30 to 39 age group for male, which is just above 90%. And then I will look at the lowest number, and that is over the age of 50 and for female and just above 40%. And then what I will do to conclude, I will pick any at the of the data set and use two of the numbers and use the word respectively, right? I can certainly pick up teenagers in this case, and I can use their numbers. For males it's about 81% and for females about 86% respectively. Keeping them in mind, this will be my answer. This bar graph shows information related to Australians fully engaged in work and or study in 2019. In this image, there are several categories, such as in the x-axis, we have the age groups, which are teenagers, 20 to 29, over 50, and on the y-axis, percentage between 0 to 100. According to the image, the highest number is between 30 to 39 age group for males, which is about 91%. And on the other hand, the lowest number is for females over 50 age group, which is just about 41%. To conclude, it should be noted that teenagers age group has 81% for males and 86% for females approximately, and respectively. Now you can clearly see that I tried to not give too much information, just a fewer information. I mentioned the title, some of the labels or categories. I gave maximum, minimum, and a conclusion. And I tried to maintain my fluency and pronunciation, which is one of the most important part in any speaking question type. However, you might have noticed that my answer was over 40 seconds. That happened because I spent or gave too much time in the categories or labels, right? So let's learn how we can reduce it. So we cannot take off the title. Title is important. We are not gonna take off the or highest or max. We're not gonna take off minimum, and we are not going to take off comparison. So what we're gonna do is going to reduce the amount of information we are giving in a category or label phase, right? So let's redo it. Let's try again. This bar graph shows information related to Australians fully engaged in work or study in 2019. There are several categories in this image, such as gender, age group, and percentage. According to the image, the maximum category is between 30 to 39 age group for males, which is about 91%. On the other hand, the lowest category is over 50 for females, which is about 41%. To conclude, it should be noted that teenagers are between 82% and 85% for males and females respectively. Now that we know how to answer a bar graph, we will look into line graph. And for that, we will take this line graph into account because it has three data sources and quite a lot of students struggle with multiple data sources. What you have to remember when you have multiple data sources is that you don't need to give the maximum and minimum from each single data source. What I do is I take one single maximum point for out of all the data sources and one single minimum point. And also in line graph, instead of using data source or data to conclude, I use the variation that happens, like whether it has steadily gone up or gone down or fluctuated or this and that, right? Keeping them in mind, remember again, I'm gonna start with the introduction, which will contain my title, and then the second line or second sentence will contain categories or labels. Third sentence will give me one maximum category with number. The fourth sentence will give me one minimum category with number. And the last sentence will give me conclusion, which will have the variation in line graph. Keeping them in mind, let's try to answer this question within 40 seconds. The given line graph shows information related to top 3 UK electricity sources. According to the image, there are several categories such as natural gas, coal, nuclear, and years between 2009 to 2019. In this image, the highest source was from natural gas in 2009, which was 45%. On the other hand, the lowest source was from coal in 2019, which was about 2.5%. In conclusion, it must be noted that there were good fluctuation between the sources over the years of 2009 and 2019. As you have seen that if there are different data sources, we do not try to provide maximum from all the data sources and minimum from all the data sources, which if you can is good, but you have to understand that you have time limitation of only 40 seconds. That's why what we do is we pick up maximum from one data source and minimum from another data source. If you take a look at the example of these two pie charts, which is part of one singular question, you will see that there are maximums and minimums in two data sources. That is, one students with first degree, another one is students with a postgraduate degree. We don't need to mention the max and mean for both of them. What we will do in our answer is going to use maximum between the highest of the two to make it easier for us. For in this case, students with postgraduate degree 67%, and we will use the minimum data source from the other image or other pie chart, like students with a first degree, which is 3%, right? Keeping them in mind. And then what we will do, we can, in this particular case, compare the same levels or same category between the two sources. For example, in this case, we can easily say that further study is 10% for postgraduate degree and 15% for students with first degree. We can clearly compare them. We can say that students with the first degree tend to go for more 1.5 times more for further study compared to students with postgraduate degree, or we can simply say that students with the first degree uh, goes for further study for about 15%. On the other hand, students with postgraduate degree goes for further education for only about 10% respectively, right? We can use that, but the core message remains same. First sentence will contain my title, second sentence will contain some of the categories or labels, third sentence will contain our maximum from one of the data sources, and fourth sentence will contain the minimum, and the conclusion will simply contain two of the data sources, either similar or different, and it will emphasize on that, right? Let's try to answer this question within 40 seconds. The given pie charts show information regarding activities of students after leaving college. According to the image, there are several categories such as full-time employment, part-time employment, further study, and so on. So the maximum category in this image is students with a postgraduate degree who got into full-time employment is about 67%. On the other hand, the lowest category is unemployed for students with a first degree, which is about 3%. In conclusion, it should be noted that number of students went for further study after first degree is 15% and after postgraduate studies is 10% respectively. So these days in PTE academic test, most of the images are either pie chart or bar graph or line graph or anything that has data points and that has numbers. But there are seldom cases where students get totally random image, and some students are scared about them. And it's quite okay to be scared, to be honest. But what we have to remember is that our strategy remains same. It remains same in the way that we will start with the title. If there is no title, we will create our own title, and then we will then give some categories. If there are no categories written, whatever we can see, we will talk about them, and then we will pick one point that I feel that is important, and I will mention that in my answer as the most important part. And another important part will be my second category, which I normally use as minimum. And then at the end, I'm gonna give a conclusion which will which will be any feature that we can see. If I look at this particular image that you can see on the screen, that we can see that it's a combination of two images. In one side, we have a girl, kid, who is holding something, some pens. Another part of the image is where the small kid is being held by an adult, and they have a bag, and they're smiling at each other, and there are a few things that we can see. So what will be the title in this case? It can be anything, but what I understand here is what I can think after looking at this image is that school stationery shop, a school kid at stationery shop with her parent, with her mother. And then I can definitely see another feature here is that there are quite a few stationery items around, like bags, there are pens, there are some other stationery items on the left hand side image. And then I can see one particularly important factor here is the girl is holding some pen. Another particular factor that I can see that I think is important is that the small kid is holding a bag and also being held by her mother, or the adult in the image. I am assuming that it's her mother. Not necessarily that has been mentioned, but I have to assume at this case. And at the end, in conclusion, I can definitely see that the adult or the mother and the kid is looking at each other and smiling. That means they may be happy or maybe smiling about something, but they are certainly smiling. So if I have to answer this, I will start like this. The given image shows information related to a school kid and her mother. So I'm just saying that a school kid and her mother, I'm assuming that this is her mother. So keeping them in mind, I'm now going to try and answer the full question. Let's be with me for the 40 seconds. The given image shows information related to a school kid and her mother. According to the image, there are a few things in this image, such as school bags and pens and some other stationery items. One of the most important features of the image is that a school kid is holding quite a few pens. On the other hand, another important factor is school kid is being held by her mother and also have one bag on her hand. To conclude, it should be noted that both the school kid and the mother are looking at each other and smiling. Now, it may not be the greatest of the answer, but trust me, it will get you 90 out of 90 because you have used the features from the question. You can answer within the time and you are able to maintain your fluency and pronunciation. So I hope you found this video useful. We just saw only 4 examples and there are so many questions to answer. There's so much to practice. So you have no alternative to keep on practicing. When you practice, always remember, use your own structure so that you can use them fluently in your exam. And learn how to isolate the data you are going to use within 25 seconds. That time management is the key. And when you answer, never neglect your fluency and pronunciation because they will give you a big chunk of a score. If you neglect them just by emphasizing on the content, you will get a very good score in content, but at the end of the day, you will not get a good score in your speaking module because you are ignoring two of the most important components. So if you need personalized help, you can definitely reach out to us. Our Bangladesh number is 0188998291 or 0188998299, or you can reach out to me here in Australia at 0456 446 963. If you want, you can simply email us at info@acpt.com.au. Happy practicing, and if you found this video useful, please like, share and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next one. Thank you.